It's Friday, December 18th, and the time for your Barbados Today morning news update. Trinidad and Tobago's closure of its borders due to the COVID-19 pandemic is beginning to take its toll on some Barbadian students. The students are unable to continue their education after leaving the country earlier this year. And Barbados' ambassador to CARICOM, David Commission, contends that the free movement of people across the Caribbean has only worsened with the collapse of the regional COVID-19 travel bubble. He suggests the time has come for regional heads to return to the negotiating table on behalf of their people. Our Kareem Smith has more in this report.
On March 21st, the Keith Rowley administration announced the closure of its international borders to all travelers, including Trinidad and Tobago nationals, as of midnight on Sunday, March 22nd. Having learned of the pending situation days before, droves of foreigners, including Barbadian students, departed the southern Caribbean country with the expectation that they would return when the country's COVID-19 situation was under control. 9 months later, the rigid border policies that have been aimed at containing the spread of COVID-19 are still in place. An anonymous Barbadian dental student enrolled at the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies revealed that online classes are not an option for that chosen field, and as a result, non-nationals have been asked to defer their studies for an entire year. The frustrated third-year student, however, complained that having deferred studies in 2016 at the behest of the institution, a further delay would add a seventh year to an academic journey ordinarily expected to last just 5 years. When contacted, Ambassador Commission promised to assist the students with special arrangements between the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of the two countries involved, but he blames the situation on the collapse of the CARICOM COVID-19 bubble that, in his opinion, is in desperate need of reconstruction. Kareem Smith for Barbados Today.
Several state agencies are yet to present up-to-date financial statements almost 2 years after the Public Management Act was passed in Parliament. Word of this from a minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn, who assured that this and other objectives under the law were not lost on government. He said key training of accountants and other changes relating to public finances and procurement procedures should be in place by the start of the next financial year in April 2021.
There's a grid that we've been developing that we can put up now that will say each SOE is up to this point, in which I'll get Sharon to publish. But we've been working to close the gap, if you like, with respect to bringing those up to date, and that work has been ongoing. And I think we are working to ensure that we can do that by the end of this financial year, where we are only outstanding maybe to 2018 or 19 in terms of a few key institutions. But the reality is that what we have recognized and we started to discuss was not just the training specifically as it related to corporate governance, but equally with respect to training within the context of government across the board. And I think it was unfortunate because we were, prior to COVID, we were kind of moving in that direction to have it rolled out certainly this year. But then obviously we had to put that on pause given the nature of the pandemic, how that unfolded.
Plans are still in place for Barbados to have a locally owned bank. That's according to Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn, who has confirmed that government is still pursuing that goal. He made the comment while delivering the feature address at the recent official opening of the City of Bridgetown Credit Union's 6 Road St. Philip branch.
We have been, as announced in the throne speech, that we will be working collaboratively with the credit union movement with respect to the post offices to be able to ensure that we can deliver on greater financial services through a locally owned bank. That is still at an early preliminary stage, but we hope to have that work completed as soon as possible within the context of the new year, such that when we are in position with respect to the launch of the ACH in full, that we are in a position equally to ensure that we can include as many Barbadians as possible. Innovation will be required, and therefore credit unions must be a part of that innovation.
Government's Adopt a Family program received a $15,000 boost. The donation came from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Barbados. The program, which is scheduled to run until the end of March next year, was initially designed to target some 1,500 vulnerable families, but that number has more than doubled to just over 3,440. ICAB President Lydia McCollin handed over the check at government headquarters.
We at ICAB, we usually donate during our Accountants Week, which we hold in November every year. We usually have an activity. One of our activities is giving back. And we usually pick a charity and we give back. This year, we thought with the complications with COVID and people being displaced or these situations being made worse, we thought that the government's program, the Adopt a Family program, was the ideal thing for us to do this year, especially come around at Christmas where people do expect to celebrate more within their families. So we thought this would be good so that we can assist in that area. And I mean, and we thank our members. We appeal to our members, and they have given generously. They thought it was a very good program, and we are giving.
Director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Caricia Etienne, has described the COVID-19 pandemic as undoubtedly the most extraordinary public health event of our lifetimes. Speaking at the organization's weekly media briefing, she said the pandemic stands out in both scale and impact. Dr. Etienne said it has also put two of the region's long-standing challenges, namely inequality and underinvestment of health systems, in the spotlight.
And while we hope 2021 will usher a new chapter in our fight against this virus, protecting the millions of people in our region with COVID-19 vaccines, we know that this will be a huge undertaking. So we must be patient and remain realistic that COVID-19 will be among us for some time. So our work to control it cannot and must not stop. Controlling the pandemic will require us to heed the lessons that we've learned thus far and to address the challenges that have long held us back: pervasive inequality and underfunded health system. 2020 was a year unlike any other. And I hope that as we look back on it, we remember it not only as the year that brought us COVID-19, but the year we finally decided to make health our top priority.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region now, Sandals, Grenada, yesterday challenged a report from health officials in the country that linked the all-inclusive resort to an increase in cases of COVID-19 across the country. We get the details of that story from GBN News.
One of the striking notes from the statement issued by Sandals today says the resort was particularly troubled to find itself being the subject of inaccurate and unsubstantiated information being disseminated in the very early days of the COVID-19 cluster debacle, which surfaced last weekend. Without going into details, Sandals says it categorically refutes much of what was stated. The open letter from the general manager at Sandals Grenada, Peter Fraser, took a jab at several health officials in the letter. It says in part, and I quote, We were dismayed to see the Chief Medical Officer and the Minister of Health host a press briefing at a time of limited facts and information to insinuate any lapse in protocols on our part. Even though the investigations are still ongoing, all parties were fully aware that we proactively initiated this process and contact tracing had yet to be completed. These utterances from official sources have fueled inaccurate further reporting both locally and internationally. Unquote. Mr. Fraser insisted that Sandals takes the COVID-19 pandemic very seriously and implored that the dissemination of information to the public be rational and based on fact. He further stated that any other approach creates unnecessary complications not just for the destination but for the population.
On the international front, a second coronavirus vaccine nears emergency approval in the U.S. after a panel of experts endorsed it. We get more in this report from Reuters TV.
After hours of discussion, the committee voted 20-0 with one abstention that the benefits of the vaccine outweigh its risks. The decision can't come soon enough as coronavirus deaths soared to a staggering daily record of 3,580 in the United States. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration will now decide within days whether to grant approval of Moderna's vaccine for emergency use. The same committee of advisors endorsed the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine a week ago, and the FDA granted its approval a day later. A second vaccine would add more fuel to a massive inoculation program that got underway almost immediately after the FDA made its decision. This comes as COVID-19 hospitalizations rose for the 19th straight day on Wednesday, and California became the first state to report more than 50,000 daily cases.
That should be sobering.
The governor on Tuesday activated a mass fatality program and purchased thousands more body bags as the state tightens restrictions meant to slow the spread. Earlier in the week, some 570 vaccine distribution centers across the country received the initial batch of Pfizer shipments, with scores of Americans now inoculated against the disease.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.